Okay, you ready?
Yeah, sure.
Alright, first off, I'm streaming tonight, and I want to make sure that it's okay with you that we're doing this live.
Yeah, I've got no problem with that.
Second off, let's clear up any, any assumptions by anyone who might watch that. Me and you have probably talked a total of, say, 5 minutes total, ever. Is that
If
right?
that,
Yeah.
I think I once sent you a PM and you responded, and that was about it.
hmm Uh, Let me just say, man, I think that your video, let me just say a little bit here before we get into it. The video was, sometimes it seems like uh, it's not like heroes arise in peaceful times or people with relevant things to say necessarily come about at innocuous, pointless times. You know what I mean? And so the video was a great way. It was very well done. It was humorous. It was relevant, and I think it echoed a lot of the sentiments that people have. And so, far be it for me to speak for other people, but I think it goes without saying that the video was the right thing at the right time, and so a lot of us appreciate your even bothering to take a whole lot of emotional knee-jerk reactions out of things that have occurred and to say things in a respectable way to PGI and to the community. And I'm pretty sure that everybody feels that way. So thanks, man.
uh, no problem. I enjoyed making it. If I didn't have fun making films, I wouldn't do it. So, uh, I this has been the most successful film I've made, though. I think I just really hit in a kind of zeitgeist, in a vein that just everybody was feeling, and they just didn't have a good way to express it, at least the way that anybody would take notice of, other than like brown sea backwash.
Okay, how do you feel about that, man? What do you really think about, the one of the good things about what your video and what whenever there's a messenger that comes along every once in a while at important times and says certain things that need to be said. Usually, one of the things that they have in common is that they're not really uh, showing a lot of animosity towards like specific people or groups, and it was pretty obvious in your video that you never even went anywhere near that. But I think I mean, there's implications there that, like, okay, it's not like PGI is the only reason why the game has gotten to the point where it is, right?
Right. I
So,
mean, it's
how do
trying.
you feel about that? Like, there's gotta be, you gotta at least feel that there's like something that, there's some sort of culpability in the community, whether or not it's people like me or people like you or noobs or comp or the people with discretionary income that spend it willfully. Like the point that we're at right now, like, without pointing fingers, do you would you agree that there's uh, some level of responsibility within us as the gamers, or do you think it's all PGI?
You'll see it often. People will point the finger back at the community and just say, this is a result of how we are behaving as a community. This is a result of the kind of information we're feeding them. We've got all these people just kind of putting out these different ideas and saying these different things and arguing and being um, just not communicative at all, and communicative. But it's hard too, because I feel like that's just a reality that any gaming developer, any gaming studio would have to deal with at the same time. Is that there's
Right.
always a community.
It's not like this is a unique thing.
I mean, sure, there's going to be a few aspects to our community that's unique. We're old. we're old. There's you're not running into many squeakers in MechWarrior Online, and if you do, it's usually like some old guy's son. We love a lot of people here love the IP. That's why they're here. That's why we're old. Is that people got involved in the IP when they were little kids themselves. And so there's definitely different, dynamics to it, different kind of shades. But it's at the same time there's been a loyalty to this community that I think is just you can't ignore. You can look at other similar games like Hawkins is the most similar, and without the IP, without the kind of brand loyalty that MechWarrior Online had, that game just dried up after a little while. And we're still here, we're still playing this. I mean, I like it, and I definitely interact with the community. Like a lot of people have posted responses to my video. People post responses on Reddit. People talk with me, and oftentimes I wish some of them wouldn't. The things they have to say, their perspectives are just so, really it's misinformed that it's a struggle to find some kind of common ground with them because they're just so off the mark, and that's definitely a reality. That's something you're dealing with, especially with an older community who might have a lot of people that aren't going to be as good at the game as some of the younger people are, or have different values for the game. They're not really looking for a thinking man's first-person shooter. They're more looking for how can I get my battle tech fix, and it's a struggle there. But I don't think there's an answer. I think that's just a reality that PGI should have figured out a while ago, and just should be aware of. I think that's they have to understand it. The reason this game's here is because they figured out some part of that, and they push out those nostalgic mechs on us, and they try to pull those little purse strings on us as best they can. But at the same time, you've got to make the game work. You've got to make the game playable. You got to make the game fun, and I think that is where more of the focus should be than I would say listening to every single individual that's posting on on the Brown Sea. Or I think even probably worse is the people that are yes men, the people that get on Twitter and they just tell PGI all the positive things that they can, and I know PGI loves it. I know Russ retweets it. I know that's great for them. They get to feel special. Maybe they get invited in to be a secret squirrel. Maybe they get to go to special discords. Maybe they can become streamers, and PGI gives them codes and mechs to try out, and it's a great experience for them. But I definitely think that's something that doesn't really make the game better. It doesn't make it doesn't make the playability of it better. It doesn't hone the issues that we have with it, and there's no problem with PGI pursuing those people. There's obviously they want those whales. If those are whales, they want the publicity if there is publicity. But if they're just yes men, they're gonna yes men PGI no matter what they do for the most part. So why can't PGI maybe listen to the majority of the people, or not even the majority, but the people who know what they're talking about, which obviously is going to be hard to decipher, but they've had like 5 to 6 years to figure that out now, and make the game better as well. It's just such a huge kind of thing to unpack, the community. I mean, PGI has gone through a lot of community managers, and there's a reason why.
When did you get into BattleTech or MechWarrior? What was your first experience with it?
So I'm not a tabletop guy. I was a MechWarrior 2 guy. I was like 10, I think, and my friend had a PC, and we'd go to his house, and he would play MechWarrior 2, and you'd have to put in your call sign, and you'd go down to the training with that sergeant dude who's just giving you constant shit. And it was great, There hadn't been a game that I had played before then where I'd felt like I'd just been dropped right into this world, this living world, and I'm running around, and this guy's giving me crap, and the next thing I know, the con's telling me to blow shit up, and I'm fighting one-on-ones in a ring, and like it was just this whole new experience, and it basically blew my mind.
So it really had a lot of immersion for you, you think?
Oh yeah, I mean, and that's what the game was fun. MechWarrior 2 is fun, and it has a great soundtrack,
You
and
think it's
everybody
held
knows
up
that.
well over time?
I don't go back and play it.
Why not?
uh, I I don't play too many old games.
Are you always looking for something new, or you not? Do you not go back and install old games?
For the most part, I don't.
What do
It's
you
just
think about the
hard.
majority of the community? Do you think that they're? Do you think that these guys are going back and installing Mech Warrior 3 and Living Legends and Mech Commander? Or do you think that they're? Do you think that when they get bored with this, that they're going on Steam, or do you think that they're holding out for BattleTech or Mech Warrior 5?
I am sure they go back and play. I think NGNG was streaming Mech Commander, and a lot of people are excited to watch that. A lot of people love that.
Really?
That's what or Sean Lang, I don't know. Someone was streaming Mech Commander, and someone was talking to me about it, and they were excited. But I kind of zoned out, so it might not have been them. Could have been someone though. Um, the odd thing about me, where I take a divergent path from a lot of the community, not all of it, was that, and I've mentioned this a few times, and people I think have this awareness of me, is that I was a huge Mech Assault fan. That if I could go back and play a game, that's kind of the game I'd want to go back and play. Although it's kind of hard and it's not the same. It doesn't have what it had for me at the time, which was the community really. And so I don't go back there. But I loved Mech Assault and Mech Assault 2. I played competitively in Mech Assault 2. That's really my only other truly competitive gaming experience beyond Mech Warrior Online, and I thought it was a great game. Like, I get that it's not a simulator. I get that it's not the next Mech Warrior game, and people didn't like that, but I think people just took it for what it was. I think they probably found themselves pretty happy with Mech Assault.
Well, if you're somebody that has a tendency to like look forward rather than to look back, do you think that there is some sort of like relevance to your own nature as in why you think? I mean, in other words, like maybe it's just the natural burnout of the game and that you're moving on. What is it that even would compel you to be like, I'm gonna make a video about Mech Warrior still?
Well, and I think that there's a lot of people who are in the same boat as I am as far as why they're still playing that game, or this game, and a lot of it is community. A lot of it is who you're playing it with, and you're not gonna, or it's gonna be a struggle to kind of find that somewhere else. Maybe a few of your friends can play a different game with you. Maybe they like it, maybe they don't. But in my experience, often when you do that, you lose a lot of people. You kind of lose the flow you have going, and it's just different. And I don't wanna lose that.
You didn't have that in Mech Assault?
Yes, and that's one of the reasons why Mech Assault 2 was so fun for me. Was I wasn't the greatest, and our team wasn't the greatest, but we were up and coming. We were doing better. We were getting higher up in the ladder and stuff, and the community, the investment in the team and your friends, and just winning and succeeding and being part of that whole kind of organized play was just exhilarating for me. And when Mech Assault 2, when the community kind of moved on, when it fell apart, when Xbox 360 came out, no one was playing the original game, I lost that. And the reality was I never got it back, and I always missed it a lot. And in this game, whether it be the game or whether it just be how much I enjoyed the game initially or whatever, I have reclaimed that community. And the idea of just dropping it, of dropping the people who play with me, of dropping our competitive team, of just leaving that behind and going somewhere else where like two other guys play with me, it's not a step I want to take. I'd rather keep this going as long as I can, keep this group of friends going as long as I can, and it doesn't have to be, to the personal level, like just people in the Isengrim. I mean, it's my contacts in the FR hub, it's my contacts on Reddit, even though I don't really get out and talk to people a lot in the community, I'm still, you know, I know my place in it, and I know everybody else's place in it, and there's something nice about that I'm just not ready to throw under the bus.
Well, then can't you just? I mean, you have to be. I'm sure you've already thought about this, but like you could. Isn't it pretty easy to just parlay that towards in MechWarrior 5 or the BattleTech game?
Well, I really suck at the BattleTech game. I played it at the first MechCon and like I lost, and people around me were like winning, like everybody was, and I,
Man.
here's the thing. It turns out you just can't run all your mechs right at the enemies, like every single move. I don't get that. That doesn't make sense to me. And then they'd all die. I assume they were just really bad pilots, but
Okay. Well, that's one of the things I find interesting about this game is that if you look at the lore, let's ignore the tabletop for a second, but in terms of lore, one of the things I find interesting is that it's really about having a sense of scale and understanding the attrition that happens across that scale. Like, as in, you're not just gonna go, like the concept, like in other words, like the concept that we know of as NASCAR and pressing aggressively in this game, as far as I can tell, is not exactly relevant to how mechs fight in the lore. Throughout history, throughout the history of the IP, it seems like there's a few occasions where, yeah, it does come down to pitch battles and frontal assaults and whatnot. But it seems to me like there's not a whole lot of actual. The way that we approach this game in terms of meta and stuff seems to be absolutely backwards in terms of how the lore represents it all.
That's completely true. You know, and that, like you're trying to say, there's an attrition aspect to it. Like the world's been destroyed, or all of them have, and you've got people running like the same mech warrior 3 generations in a row, and
Then aren't we really playing an arena shooter where it just so happens to be that the IP is something that we find interesting enough to hold our attention, but at the end of the day, it's not even really like legit. Like, it seems like we're kind of twisted.
yeah, yeah. I
And
mean, it's not
maybe PGI fundamentally
pure.
approached it the wrong way.
So as I've mentioned, I played Mech Assault 2, and compared to Mech Assault 2, this game's way more lore appropriate.
Really?
But
Okay.
well, yeah. I mean, you've got VTOLs flying around picking up power ups and dropping them on you. And when you kill an enemy mech, he first of all he explodes, he stack pulls, and if someone's standing too close, they die. And more importantly, he will drop power ups for you. He'll drop some greens that heal your mech up. He drops some reds that upgrade your missiles. He drops a yellow that upgrades your Gauss. Like it was very as far as that goes, it definitely wasn't it wasn't the kind of game that you would initially think of when it came to the IP. And it's definitely different in MechWarrior Online, like you said. But I think there's still a truism to the IP embedded in the game, and I think that is just the idea of you blowing out components, you getting rid of arms, you having ammo, running out of ammo, you have internal explosions. You have these slow fights over time with this attrition value, and I know a lot of people think it's still too fast. There's alphas are too powerful, but that's definitely something that's not available in most other games out there. There's a few of them that have something like it, especially the kind of like World of Tanks kind of games. But I think there's an element of MechWarrior IP, BattleTech IP, inherent in that aspect of the game, and there's no way PGI can go back and change it to make it more tactical, more slow, no NASCAR-y kind of a situation. But I appreciate their attempt, because there weren't a lot of games like this out there, and there still aren't. And I think they just kind of went with what they could do and what they had. And I mean, as we've seen with balancing and weapons and mech scales and things like that, there's a lot of unintended consequences that I just think is pretty clear by now we're not aware of. And I definitely things like NASCARing and the fast paced kind of play of this game that differs from the IP is just one of those things I don't think they anticipated. But I think by this point in the development, it's just part of the game. And you know, if that's not the game you want to play, then definitely BattleTech's coming up, and maybe MechWarrior 5 will be different as well. But for this game and how this game's played, like I just see it as an adaptation of what the BattleTech was, what the IP was, and I'm I'm at peace with that. I'm okay with it. I've had fun with it.
Absolutely. That last point, yeah, resonates with me a lot. But let's imagine you could go back in a time machine. Don't, don't let me paint a picture for you here.
All
Don't you
right.
think that? Yeah, let's imagine that CW wasn't shit, and it had repair and rearm, and it had risk versus reward, and you had to. It gave you a sense of you had to be good if you really wanted to make difference in the scope of the universe of the IP. And so if you were really good, you took the risks, and if you were successful, those risks would pay off, and you would have access to impacting the universe and the inner sphere in dynamic ways, and there would be ripple effects. And if you were really shit, you could have suffered as a result of that, or be treading water, so to speak. Don't you think that that would have been a more realistic representation of the IP, and given people a sense of the scale and scope of the IP, and done a better job of like being faithful to what BattleTech is? I mean, because
Well,
it
absolutely.
seems to me that this is just like what we have right now is an FPS arena shooter that's casual, where the only unique aspect of it is trades. Because if me and you go play Battlefield or go play COD or CS, is just brrr, kill you, right? Like
Hmm.
it, there's no trading, there's no attrition, there's no components. It's just brrr, put you down, right? Like, and so if you ask me what is actually unique about this game in the genre, it's that. And how could you have applied that to BattleTech more faithfully and given a better representation of what it represents? It would have had to have been through community warfare, and they shit the bed before that was even out. I mean, I literally quit the game the last day of beta because of how they were presenting their ideas, and what they were going to be doing with it. I saw through it, and I said, this is going to be a joke. And when I came back a year later, it was a joke. And it's had numerous impacts on the way that comp unfolded. It's had numerous impacts in the way meta unfolded. It's had numerous impacts on the business model. It's had numerous impacts in just the general maturation and trajectory of the game. It seems to me that that was the one opportunity that they had to take. If I said to you, let's imagine I gave you a lobotomy, and then I said, and I burned out the past 5 years of your head, I said, MechWarrior Online isn't the shit I described with, a more comprehensive CW, isn't that really what comes to mind?
Definitely, absolutely. That's also kind of what they sold us on. You know, the original game. It was MechWarrior Online. It was going to be an open RPG, and they attempted rearm and um, repair as well, and that's I've made a few videos about CW, about the promises they've made for CW and what they've delivered on. I've made specifically one video about that, but that's definitely something I was aware of. That's definitely something I wanted. It killed me how long it took them to have CW come out, and then it's killed me even worse to see what it kind of turned out to be. If I could go back in time, if we could go from the start, that's the world. So let's say the mechs and the play style is going to be the way it is now. That's just a reality of just kind of how this is set up.
Sure.
The world could have still been great. The world could have still been the one we wanted to fight in, and they just were never able to really provide us that environment. And
What the game needed was a persistent stay universe that was balanced at the beginning.
And
this whole reset of the CW map and the MOBA style of it was just, that was awful. That was a bad way of approaching it. Maybe it was over their heads in terms of like the capability, right? Like
Yeah.
if I said to you, let's have a game with a persistent universe where, and there's risk versus reward. And you own a planet. Let's say Isengrim has a planet, okay? And I take my crew and I gotta invest 500 million sea-bills to attack your planet and buy a drop ship and prepare for it and blah blah blah. And we go attack you, we lose or we win regardless. Like, that's a huge fucking risk. But what do gamers always do? We're always trying to find corners to cut these, to mitigate these risks and to maximize the rewards. So if I attack you at 4 in the morning on a Tuesday with X amount of people and you only have Y amount of people, and well, my X beats your Y, well, that's the whole, that's it right there, right? Like, you turn into like an Eve thing, or you turn into like a way that a lot of MMORPGs try to present siege mechanics and a dynamic world and a persistent world, and it fucks up when you have the ability for people to zerg within real time, as if I can come at any time and we can come at any time. Like, how do you possibly stymie that? And it just seems to me that maybe they saw all of that and said it's going to be impossible to balance, and so they just crapped this thing out and they didn't want to bother. But I mean, they should have at least tried, right?
Yeah. And they may have tried. It just, we may have never seen it, because a lot of those things were in the earliest drafts of what they wanted to do with CW.
Right.
Even in their horrible launch, they had that PowerPoint or whatever where, again, they're talking about a unit controlling a planet and having drop ships, and it's just logistics, CW logistics that make the world living. It probably was something that was just over their head. It was probably something they weren't capable of doing. And there's some issues with it, like you said, that we're going to find the corners to cut. We're going to zerg at 4 a.m. when no one's on to defend their location, and it's going to become a big kind of issue. And there's also the skill disparity, and there are a handful of units that are just going to completely outclass the majority of everyone else in the game.
Either outclass or outzerg.
I outclass, really. I mean, both. Like, you have the old MS, and they would have outzerged, and but then you have some teams that are very small, and they will never lose. Like, if that team that's very good focuses on you or focuses on your territory or any kind of mechanic, there's nothing you can do. There's no... it would have to take just extreme mechanics in the game to prevent, the one of the best teams from just annihilating everybody else. I mean, there's
like, I haven't heard the perfect solution. Do you know what I mean?
Well, yeah, and that's something that often happens in the third-party leagues, like what was it, Polaris? Is that what it was? And then, or no, not Proxys. And an NBT is often you get a team that can't be beat. And this comes into what you mentioned earlier, three arm and repair, is that if you have a team that can't be beat and they're winning and they're getting, the better mechs and they're getting the better weapons and they're getting the better resources, it snowballs. They're
Right.
not the mechanics of the game are now backing them, and
Right.
they went from not being able to be defeated regularly to having things stacked in their favor, and now what are your chances?
Hmm. Hmm.
And I don't know if I've NBT and Proxys. Neither one of them really has an answer to that. I don't think either of them have been able to fix that. That's just what happens, when there's a fish in the pond you can't beat, and it's kind of sad. I mean, I don't know if something PGI could have handled either, if they have an answer for that as well. And why would you want to play if you just kept getting beat by the same teams all the time? And I'm sure
But
some
what's
this is
different between that and the reality right now? Like, why would I bother going and single dropping in faction warfare to stand next to dudes who are in stock decks against 12 mans where if in a vacuum I said fight me for $100 one at a time, I'd make fucking $500 in an hour. Like, you see what I'm saying? Like, what is the fucking
yeah.
what's the difference between that that utopia scenario that we're talking about that seems completely unattainable and unprogrammable and unenforceable and unbalanceable, and the reality that we have right now, which is completely unbalanced? Or do you think it's different in the sense that, like, there's a vacuum right now because the way the population is and the way that the meta's evolved and that at CW, and so people gave up on it and said it's not worth it, and some people doubled down on it because they had fun zerging it, or, I mean, it just seems like a fucking mess, and this is why I look at old MMORPGs where they tried to tackle some of these issues and most of these games failed. It seems like a really, really, really big problem in online games. But the only games where I can look at and say they came up with the solutions, like PlanetSide 2, do you know what I mean? Stuff like that, where it has to be reduced to like a mindless, pointless thing in order to keep it sustaining and balanced. Like, we're just doing it's an arena shooter, but it's 64 man and the server just resets occasionally.
Yeah. Uh, if I mean, it is a tough thing to figure out an answer for, and I don't think PGI's ever had an answer. I don't think they have a good answer. I think CW is a travesty, the way it is, and I think at some core level PGI realizes that as well. There's a reason why Sean Lang and Bombadil never drop in CW matches, and they'll tell you even in their videos, I think, that they don't like it. And you'll never see a dev other than them dropping in a CW match, because I mean, you rarely see devs drop in regular matches. But there has to be a core there that they understand that their product is not is just not what they want. And I would almost wish that they would just take it down. Take CW down and figure out a new way, figure out a better way. And I don't think they would ever do that, but I think they're at a point where trying to take what they have now and force little bits into it, it's not going to get any better. And it's not where it should be, and it's not what they promised us it would be. It's basically a respawning mode, where it's easy for a coordinated team. It's easier for a coordinated team to farm, and if you're getting farmed, you're stuck in it longer than in a regular match.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would agree. I mean, it's just, yeah, I guess, like, PGI cutting their losses in terms of, like, focus. Do you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
because if you look at where their focus is, mech packs and whatnot, maybe it comes down to, like, programming, or, like, maybe you have to have strong game design, and you have to have strong people in terms of coding, and maybe they just don't have that, or maybe that's where the people that they do have, their skills aren't necessarily at.
Well, I have been told that the lead CW developer for Phase 3 in CW. A month before it was released, he left the company, and
That's true.
he wasn't even brought in to do CW. I'm pretty sure he was brought in to do Transverse, and then he was moved to CW after Transverse ate it gloriously. And so, they're not even, they have a different guy doing a different thing, and he doesn't even stick around to finish it. And I mean, obviously, we don't know what happened, but one thing that did happen was either PGI wasn't happy with him or he wasn't happy with PGI, and he went somewhere else or was forced to go somewhere else. And that's not a positive thing. That's not something that speaks well of um, what's going on behind the scenes. Maybe they're just hiring people that aren't going to stick around for long, or maybe they have a corporate culture that makes competent people not want to stick around for long. As at least maybe not in competence in certain skill sets like whatever CW is required. But that's all speculation. We don't know. Obviously, their PGI doesn't talk to me. I get the feeling they don't actually like me.
Well, they don't really like anybody.
Well, I think if I went on Twitter and every time Russ spoke, I got down on my knees and washed his feet, um, and
I mean,
maybe
dude, on that note, like, and I don't want to stick on this one for a second, but just a second. There's people who don't even play the game that he communicates with more than people who play this game on a daily basis for hours. And isn't that like alone like indicative that they're
yeah.
not in, it's not even like that they're missing the plot or anything. It's that they genuinely don't want to interact with that shit. They don't want to face the music, maybe.
And I think it comes back to the fact that many of the developers don't play the game. They might say, "Oh, I have a secret account," but I doubt that they play on those secret accounts very often. Especially when you do see them playing, it's pretty evident that they're not practiced. And if they're not playing the game, it makes it easy for them to listen to people who either aren't playing the game as well or don't know what they're talking about or giving them bad advice, because they don't know firsthand. Uh, how can they vet that information when they have taken the ability for them to experience it firsthand out of the equation?
I have. We're gonna move the conversation on in a second, but I have a little anecdote to tell you. Way back in the day when IGP was still involved, they actually hired Angry Joe and Total Biscuit to market the game with a couple videos, each of them. And I remember at the time that when they did that, they actually reached out to us at DBA, being the top unit at the time, and they asked us to train them in order for those two guys to be able to make videos where they weren't looking like complete idiots. That is, like, in other words, like, don't, like, they hired them to make videos to promote the game and market the game, but they didn't want them to just step in and do it on their own with like 2 hours of play. You know what I mean? And so they asked us to come in and help show them the ropes a bit for a day. And I remember sitting in a TeamSpeak with PGI and IGP and our unit and Angry Joe and Total B. And at the time I was banned, and probably justifiably so for being an asshole, but like, I couldn't even talk in the forums, or I couldn't even talk in the game in chat. And here we are sitting together, and it's like you are asking us to help these people to promote the game properly, but we can't even, the people that you're asking to do that, a couple of us can't even communicate. And like sitting there in the TeamSpeak and being like, Destiny, who was an IGP employee, and be like, Destiny, can you unmute me so we can I can say things in chat in the middle of the fights and stuff, and getting no response. And that to me was all that's the one thing I always look back on, was like, they genuinely don't give a fuck about marketing the game properly, or bringing in people that are competent enough to present things in a way to other people to market it properly. And it always felt like we're behind the 8 ball, so to speak, and it never, you know, it's supposed to be a two-way street between a community and the developers, and it always felt like with this game that PGI doesn't really give a fuck about that. They wanted to cut corners at every opportunity and just basically squelch people who, it's not even about dissent, it's just squelch people who they don't want to deal with, or something like that. It just seems fucked up to me.
And I think a lot of people get that feeling too, especially people who try. There's a lot of people who try, and PGI just either ignores them or has in the past, silenced them. And like even me, I've never been banned from this game. I've never been suspended. I've never really been in any trouble with PGI. I've almost, I think I had one thread locked once on the forums that had nothing to do with PGI. It had something to do with another unit. But I've never been their enemy. And I've created a lot of content that had nothing to do with me having an issue with PGI. That really just promoted the game.
That's what I'm saying. That content, like people like you and I, we want to promote the game. We want to bring in more people. We want to be that third party that is indirectly marketing their game for them. And it seems like they just arbitrarily spank motherfuckers down.
Or they just don't care, or they wish would go away. I think someone in your Twitch mentioned that they do promote people like Beef, for instance. I mean, so they do have people like that they promote, but I'm not sure those people ever engage PGI with a level of constructive criticism in their hearts. I think they're just more of pure promoters than people, trying to fix something, at least publicly.
Let's move on.
Okay.
Something I've been thinking about a whole lot lately is I really do believe this at this point. I've really been giving a whole lot of thought to this over the past 2 months. I think that the game has been systematically moved from the mech packs being exclusively a whale obsession and strictly marketed at whales to, I think that they've tried to make the game, in terms of balance, really accessible to day one players off of Steam. What do you think about that? I don't think it's about whales anymore. I think it's about casual Steam players. What do you think?
I think you're probably right. I mean, you can see the change going from the kind of giant packs that went into the hundreds of dollars to a more kind of isolated single mech or family of mech kind of promotion. And so instead of buying the Phoenix pack or you end up buying one mech. And that makes sense, financially, getting people purchasing those single mechs that they like, as opposed to getting them to buy the packs. Although it's in all this time, we really haven't seen them come up with new ways to create revenue for this game other than mech packs, which I think is ultimately hurting them now because they're trying to balance, hundreds of mechs, and you can't make hundreds of mechs all equally as viable. That's just not possible.
And fundamentally, the IP doesn't even attempt that. Now, the point that there's a really, 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 really important thing here, man, and that is the IP really about giving a sense of the fractious, organic feeling that you get in a real-time, realistic scenario with this sort of scope and scale where technology is not exactly homogeneous across the board. And so, like, how do I say it? Like, it's really about, is that an organic thing in the IP, the fundamental imbalances that we have and the reasons that they justify it. There's what is the term? Deus Ex Machina, where there are hand of God concepts where the clans arrive or the jihad arrives, blah blah blah, and so we introduce the IP introduces concepts of strictly inferior in all forms of the IP, whether it be tabletop or whatnot. Or when we look at MechWarrior Online, are we really just looking at standard fucking casual video game power creep?
I think it's definitely more the second one. I think there would be a huge struggle making the game fun if there's always going to be half the mechs are better than the other half of the mechs. If the clan mechs are always superior to the IS mechs, then why bother with the IS mechs? And that's just, I think, a reality of transitioning this game to this kind of format, or the IP to this kind of format. Let's see, Terragato for a while did a lot of stats about what creates 12-0.
A good man.
And he what he realized, and I think everybody kind of knows this, I think the other stats came out as well that showed this, is one of the greatest indicators of who's going to win or lose is if you have a disconnect at the start.
Absolutely. I've specifically been really dude, there have been rounds where I see a DC in 3 AFKs at the beginning of the round and I type in chat. Usually to my team, because you don't want to really give it away to your team, the other team all the time. But I'll be like, we're going to lose. We have 3 DC, we have like a DC and 3 AFKs. I'm going to go fucking jerk off behind this hill and make a sandwich. And it's like, I'm not trying to be an asshole, I'm not going to, but I'm not going to, I mean, I've played a zillion fucking rounds. I'm not going to sit here and try and bother, like, Ramboing this shit, dude, game after game after game, when that is 10% of the fucking rounds.
And it's, and that's kind of one of the issues with clan balancing, is they went with it's less. It's like 8-on-5 or something like that.
I think there's merit
balance.
to that, man. Asymmetrical concept. I'm not saying that it's the right solution or that they should have done that, but I'm just saying it's never been even remotely entertained as a fucking viable approach to it.
And I get why they can't do that, because one mech,
Right.
even a light mech, can change the outcourse of a game. But yeah, there's other ways, and they did some of these ways. The way the IS weapons worked, the IS lasers worked compared to how clan lasers worked. If I'm sure you remember earlier on in CW, you could get a medium pulse thunderbolt. You could get him close with the enemy mechs, and once he closed with his kind of really quick MPL barrage, he's gonna destroy a clan mech whose weapons have more range and longer burn times, and they need to stay at that distance. And then with the difference between the heat sinks, the IS mechs would be cooler, so over time they could do more damage, whereas the clan mechs were more kind of alpha centric. And so there were little things like that were implemented into the game that I don't know if they lost sight of, or they forgot they put them in there, or what. Because these things come up in recent nerfs, where they nerfed clan MPLs and IS MPLs together without realizing that it was really more of an IS nerf than a clan nerf, because they had built in these differences between the mechs. And you get the same kind of stuff for the heat sinks as well. They didn't really understand that there had been this intention to create a sort of balance through different fighting styles and different weapon styles. And I don't know how they could have forgot that, It's kind of creepy.
it's almost like when you start like just thinking about all this shit, man. It's almost depressing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But we're gamers, and we wouldn't be here if we weren't inherently optimistic, right? You wouldn't be here, certainly.
You know, and it's the community too. You know, we I've bonded with a lot of people in this game, and I'm not ready to call it. I'm not ready to just walk away from it and say goodbye to all them, and hope that in 10 more years something else comes around where I can have this relationship again with the people I'm playing with. And I, you know, I don't want to lose that. I want PGI to succeed, and I don't know how to make them succeed other than just huge public backlashes. It just doesn't seem like anything else reaches them. When people will write out a huge, well thought out post to PGI that members have done before, it feels like PGI just doesn't get it, or doesn't care enough, or hopes that it gets forgotten and thrown under the rug, and it's not a problem they have to deal with. And generally, that's what we see all the time. We only really see massive change when there's a huge kind of pressure on them from the community, and then they feel like they have to backtrack,
I
and it
remember
sucks.
a long time ago, consistently seeing PGI and IGB playing the game. I mean, I had some of them on my friend lists. I remember, you know, we'd be able to invite them on a whim, and they would drop with us, and they would talk, and they would even come in and say hello on voice and stuff. And it seems to me like that doesn't exist anymore. Do you think do you think you really don't think they play the game? You don't think that they're all out there like motherfucker Spiral Face out there and running fucking accounts and just playing it close to the vest? You really think that they genuinely don't play this game?
I don't think they play it.
You really believe that?
At MechCon, I remember talking to one of the developers for PGI, and I was asking him, you know, how much do you play this game? And he says, well, I play it on an alt, and I was asking him what tier his alt was, and it was like tier 4. And I mean, that right there just told me how much he played that
What the
game.
fuck? Dude, you can be in tier 3 in 2 hours.
Well, exactly. And that's what I think is, I think maybe they get on these alts and they play it a little bit, like the minimum required, and that's it. I don't think they have the passion for it
You really
that the
think so?
players do.
You really think they don't have the passion?
The passion to play it. It's like when you see Paul get on a stream and he
Okay, let me
goes to
interrupt
his
you.
like,
Let me interrupt
okay,
you for a second for one.
okay,
Let's say you're a music artist and you come up with a
mhm,
song, okay? Are
yep.
you gonna sit there and you're gonna fucking put your own record on and sit there and listen to it? Or do you think it's more like, well, you're on tour, you're gonna fucking rock and roll that song and you live that shit, right? I mean, you really don't think that these people have passion for playing it? You think that it's a job? And you think that maybe the few of them do kind of enjoy it, but it's not like they're like, like us? None of them?
You know,
Really?
I can't say everybody. You know, maybe there's a guy in there, and I think there's a few devs that aren't too bad that do it. But I think the vast majority, and I think the people at the top, I don't see it. For a few reasons. One is the things that they see, the things they react to, the they just don't appear to be coming from a person who's playing the game a lot. We have to bring things up to them all the time. We have to push things if we want anything to be done or to talked about.
You're
Um,
fighting through a swarm of demented retards. Straight up and down. If you want to sit there and get their attention, you know that even if you, here's the fucked up part, is that when you do get their attention, like your video do, you know that you are the 100th person that has finally got to their attention. How the fuck does your shit possibly supersede and completely illegitimize the 99 previous idiots that they've actually bothered to listen to?
I don't know. You know, I wish it didn't have to happen that way. I feel like so many decisions they've made though is coming from a place where they don't have the experience needed to fully evaluate the decision they're making.
Okay, let's say in a theory, in a vacuum. First off, let me preface this with by saying, now check this out before I drop this noodle baker. I actually have a lot of respect for Russ and Brian. I really do. I've said this for years. And that is because it takes a lot of audacity to go out there and grab your dream by the balls and at least attempt it. It really does. Because if you don't, guess what? You're selling fucking insurance or some garbage like that. I give them a lot of credit for this is their dream. This is what they want to do, okay? And far be it from us to be the machinations and the Cthulhu and their fucking their dream that turns it into a nightmare, wakes them up. However, at the end of the day, man, who are they actually fucking listening to? Do you think it's just the Brown Sea? Do you think it's the fucking, you think it used to be the whales and now it's the steam casuals that dictates the business model, that the way that the balance is working? Do you really fucking believe that we can get through at this point, dude? Because I'll tell you right now, before we started talking, I said to a friend, I said to a top player in this fucking game, a very close friend, I said to him, I'm reading it right now, do you really think that there's nothing that can be done and that this is the natural bell curve maturation of a game where we're just on that downslope spiral and then it just curves out like that? You really think there's something that can legitimately change the trajectory? And he says, yeah. And dude, I'm a pretty optimistic guy, but I don't fucking buy it. How the fuck do you expect do you really think that, like, dude, real talk didn't change a fucking thing, alright? There's cats out there like Warglaves that'll sit there and fucking, they don't give a fuck, man. PGI didn't give a fuck. I had to sit there and track this motherfucker down, record a video, and report the guy for him to get fucking popped. You know what happens? The next day he's back. I could fucking show you a picture of Alexander Gardy and say, we don't give a fuck, motherfuckers, come back. Like, how the fuck do you expect for them to sit there? You really expect for them to sit there and listen to what you're saying as being relevant and take it at fucking face value and really fucking meditate and marinate on it, simmer on that shit, and just turn this game around, man? I'm an extremely optimistic gamer, but I tend to crystallize my optimism in phases, as if, like, if the meta is really good now, that's cool, I love it. When it changes, if I don't like it, so be it, but I can always fucking hold in my pocket and take solace in the fact that at one point it was good, and maybe in the future I find something that's similar to that, or whatever. But you really think that they're gonna fucking listen to this fucking video? You really think they're gonna listen to people like you or me and actually fucking change this fucking game for the best?
So, if I was a gambling man, if I was gonna bet on you know, if they were gonna do it or not, I would bet that they wouldn't. I would bet that they won't listen. They will think that I am just an annoyance who they wish they could ban but can't, and just leave them alone. That's if I had to bet, that's what I think is going to happen. But you know, that doesn't mean I can't hope that I'm wrong, and I can't hope that maybe we can help kind of push them in the right direction. We can. And that's a far-fetched hope,
dude.
You know, I don't,
that's
you know,
incredibly fucking respectable and admirable, and I love to hear that. But the ultimate what it really boils down to is how the fuck are we gonna fucking band together and chop fucking heads of all the retards around that keep talking and get them to fucking listen to us, and specifically us? How the fuck do you expect that, man? What do we gotta do, man? Do we gotta, like, honestly, man, like, what do we gotta fucking do to cut through all the bullshit, man?
Well, Russ did not like it when people kept adding my video to him on Twitter, so at least we can annoy him a bit. And you know what? There might be no way. It might be impossible. But if their whole community is constantly yelling at them about something,
it's not the whole community. It's a specific demographic of people that have a fucking brain. They have a fucking clue.
If enough of the community is bugging them, I think they can make a change. And I don't think that it's going to be the best. I don't think that's what PGI does. I think any time in the past that a community outroar has caused PGI to reconsider what they're doing, the majority of the times it's like a little step back, or maybe just not as big of a step forward, as opposed to them just throwing something away. I think I can only think of energy draw as something that they really just
Sure, good call on that one.
and so, but that one never went live either. And we're talking about things that have gone live, and then there's something that we don't know, and that's what PGI thinks about this game. Themselves. Have they put MWO like on the back burner? Gave it the C team to kind of keep it sort of working.
What do you think?
And put all the A guys on MechWarrior 5 and MechWarrior 5.
What do you think about that?
Do I think that's what they've done? I think there's probably more truth in that than there isn't. Did they just go, you know what, CW is a loss, let's get it out there. This game's a loss, or at least we can see the revenues are decreasing. It's this old. We need a new cash flow. We need something different. So let's push MechWarrior 5 and let's get this done. And we're going to leave our junior whatevers as the custodians. Like, I think there's a good chance that's what's going on right now.
Sure, but let's not call it a loss, right? I've had a lot of fun. I would not. Dude, if I showed you my desktop, it's like half the games from the 90s. Do you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
This ain't a fucking loss.
Well, no, we've been playing it for years.
Yeah, exactly. What the fuck, Like, right. Like, what? I mean, it ain't no fucking loss, man. Anybody out there that thinks that this was a fucking loss that have had their jollies, the only people who I think could call it a fucking loss are people that got fucking predatory jacked for like 2 G's or something dumb like that because they spent way too much fucking discretionary income on the game.
The Golden Mech Warriors.
Yeah. By the way, I have a question. Completely left field. Can you put a camo on a gold mech?
I don't know. I don't. No one in my unit has a gold mech. I'm not in the gold mech circles. I think you're.
It's a good one, isn't it? All right.
Yeah, it's
yeah. Where do you think it goes from here, man? Do you think it lasts till 2020?
I don't know. I wouldn't dare to make a prediction. I mean, I'm sure guys 3 years ago, before private matches were even in the game, were telling you, this game's going down. This game's going nowhere. It's on its last legs. Like I have friends or acquaintances or rivals who have all left this game because they thought it was done for. And I remember someone specifically telling me, I was like, hey, and that's why I bring up private matches. I said, private matches are going to be out like in 4 months. It's going to be fun. You should stick around and be like, this game's not going to last that long. Before private matches come out, it's going to be dead. And, it's not. It's still going. I think a lot of its future really depends on PGI's plans for its future, especially in relationship to MechWarrior 5. Is MechWarrior Online always going to be the online component to this new MechWarrior franchise, single-player franchise taking shape? And if that's true, are they going to come back to this and rewrite it in the new engine that they're working with on MechWarrior 5? And if that would be great if they came back and they did that. They kind of refocused on MechWarrior Online after MechWarrior 5's released to make the online aspect of it fun. That'd be great, and I think they could do that. And I think if they did, they'd keep this game alive, easily till 2020.
I think that's a great idea, isn't it? As if they were to do that. I really do genuinely believe this. Let's say they go out and they make MW5, and they got to do what they got to do with the business model for MWO. They put out MW5, and then they are able to maybe take this MWO and put it into, give it new life with a new engine. What do you, like? Isn't that kind of what a lot of people are hedging about,
Yeah, that's the hope. That's the dream.
isn't it?
That we get Unreal MechWarrior Online. You know, we can call it MechWarrior Online 2. That you get to they bring the same mechs over that you've already purchased or something like that, and it's just this game but
Would
better.
that even matter?
I I
Let's say
wouldn't
right
care
now
that
I gave you, let's
much.
say right fucking now I said I had, here, download this fucking shit and it's MechWarrior Online on Unreal. Sorry, but all your shit's gone, but this is the future. You can either be sentimental and fuck off, or you can get with the fucking program. What would you do?
I'm not that much against it. I've definitely spent hundreds of dollars on this game, and you know, if that's the price of getting MechWarrior Online 2, is that I you know, those were MechWarrior Online 1 mechs, and in MechWarrior Online 2, I got to rebuild uh, my whatever to
Stable?
rebuild all my my stable. Then yeah, then I'm okay with that. I do think though that there's gonna be a lot of people who aren't. I feel like there's gonna be a huge backlash if they did that. There's gonna be a lot of people moaning about it all over the place, and it makes me think that PGI might not want to deal with that. I don't know. Maybe they do.
Utility of satisfaction. You took anthropology, correct?
Yeah.
I went to school for business. One interesting thing that I learned in college was utility of satisfaction. It's notoriously fickle. For example, if I said to you, X amount of people quit because the skill tree pissed them off, something arbitrary like that, right?
Hmm.
Who's to say that all those motherfuckers, or X amount, might be 1%, it might be 99.9%, don't immediately turn around and download MechWarrior Online on the new engine, or the new version of it, regardless of the fucking skill. That, you know what I mean? Like, in
Yeah,
other
yeah.
words, it's very difficult to pinpoint how people are changed from day to day. They're pragmatic, they're dynamic, everything fluctuates, everything is relative. You have good days, you have bad days. Sometimes you have time for gaming, sometimes you don't. And people justify it in a myriad of ways. And so, who's to say that if all these people have quit because CW sucked, and not enough people playing the matchmaker sucks, they killed the balance, I'm tired of the mech pack business model, this and that. Who's to say all these people, or they wouldn't be replaced by new people, whatever, that if MechWarrior Online was put out on Unreal, and let's just say it's like that, MechWarrior Online on an Unreal tournament, Unreal server, Unreal Engine, and then they had a better idea for CW, and all your old shit's gone, but now all of a sudden
true warriors
you have
for.
all these random people showing up, man. Like, wouldn't that breathe? Do you think that would breathe enough life into it for let's go to 2025?
Yeah. And I
I do
think you're
too.
right. I think I'm ultimately wrong.
No, man, it ain't even that, man.
Well, you know, whales are gonna whale, right? If we put
Exactly.
if we put it in a new game, the 50-year-old guy who played tabletop with his little brother before his brother jumped out of a plane and died. He's gonna come back to the new game and he's gonna throw his $1,000 in it again
Yeah.
if he gets MechWarrior Online 2 into the future. So I think based off of how the community is stuck by this game, they could probably start anew. They could start fresh, and they could probably do something nice, like, oh, we're gonna convert X amount of whatever into this new game for you, so it's not a brand new situation you're in. You have a little bit of holdover, but it could still
This
be financially viable for them to like kind of start over.
Okay.
And that'd be cool. I'd be cool with that. Maybe they've learned, but maybe not. Has Paul ever dropped again after that time when he was in a catapult?
Got knocked
And
over by dragons.
yeah, after the time that the
Yeah, he
community
has. Yeah, he has.
finally taught him that
He
knockdowns had an issue.
He has. He definitely has. They're out there, man. I'm not saying they play all the time. I disagree with you on that notion. I definitely think they are out there on Smurfs, and we don't know who they are, and blah, blah, blah. But they ain't rocking fucking top accounts, and they don't understand the meta properly, and maybe even if they do, they don't really give a fuck, because again, it's not about like it what we perceive as being virtuous is not a guaranteed business model at all. Period. Point blank. I've played
Yeah.
plenty of games where I've played games that are extremely niche like this. I've played games like this competitively where they're extremely niche. I've played games where they are extremely mainstream. And there's always going to be things where you go, what the fuck is this in terms of balance and whatnot? And so I it's a constant quest for perfection, and perfection doesn't exist in this world. It doesn't. If
Well,
there was a perfect
in,
game, we'd all be playing chess.
and especially in a pay to play, like they can't let the meta get stale.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, and as someone that prefers meta to stagnate and crystallize and to get comfortable with it and to elevate that particular meta, that's what I prefer. But that's not a business model, which is something else I've been thinking about, which I'm glad I can lead into. What do you think about the idea of let's go the opposite of that whole thing we just talked about, and let's imagine MWO died tomorrow and they put out the source code. Do you really think that this community is going to put out a better version of the game before it's too fucking late? Do you really think that we are so fucking clever and so fucking intelligent and so fucking aware that we could actually sit here with the source code and make, oh, well, I got to change this in the XML, blah blah blah, and boom, oh look, the game's great, everyone's fucking playing, everyone's back. I don't buy it, man. I've played private
think
servers, man, where the private server is in magazines and has a larger population than the retail shit. But that is not a fucking guarantee that it kills the retail shit, or that the retail shit takes note, shuts down the private shit, implements what the private shit was doing, and everybody's fucking happy. It's not that easy, man. What do you think? Do you think if me and you were sitting here, we had a fucking $1 zillion, and we could buy out PGI and make the game ourselves, or if PGA dropped the game, put out MW5, and that's all they focused on, drop the fucking IP on us and the source code, that XYZ and Terragata can sit there with the fucking XML and make this fucking game perfect? I don't know, man.
I don't think that we as a community could do what PGI does in a lot of the unseen aspects of this game, and I don't think it would happen. The game would become pretty much frozen at that point. Obviously, we're not going to get many new mechs. We're not going to.
But doesn't Living Legends and all, and I mean, I could look at Mech Commander 2. Go play Omnitech. It has twice as many mechs, 3 times as many mechs. That was all from the heart, motherfuckers out there doing it for the real shit. Nobody getting paid.
I do think, and like you mentioned, you've seen these mods that are more popular than the original game, or influence how the original game is played afterwards, because they come up with something that is more fun. And I think it's definitely possible with someone else, and taking the back seat and tweaking the XMLs, and specifically someone who plays a lot and has played for a while and has an intuitive understanding of this game that surpasses the majority of PGI's devs. I think there is a chance that I think there's a good chance that someone could come up with something that was a worthwhile game to play, that would have a lot of people playing it. Now, would everybody come back? Would there be like 600 different versions? Are you going to go play on the LRM server where people can sit in the back of the base and press one button and think they're gods?
This is a potential huge fucking killer.
But I still think that they could make a better game in the short term if they tried. At least with the XML balance kind of starting where we are with just a few changes. I think PGI has always been very slow with reacting to the majority of these kind of balance changes, with the majority of understanding and really figuring out how to change the meta around. And I don't know if it's just how they work, or if it just takes them so long to figure out or realize what's going on. And it's like I mentioned with the reason why you don't see SRM brawling very much anymore, and you don't see Pop-Tarting very much anymore. And it's a whole... Well, yeah, well, with the way they killed it, It's the
okay, man, they killed that because they don't want the skill in the game.
well, so what they did though, it's like PPC. So you run PPCs, right? You
Not
run
anymore.
the mediums.
Not anymore.
You did though.
long,
You get
long
you knew
time.
how to do it though,
Sure.
right? Obviously. Like it's the kind of mech that needs to always be firing. From the minute the game starts, you
Sure.
move into position and you find the dude you're killing or whoever, and you shoot the whole game. And by the end of the game, you've got 1,000 damage.
Sure.
But if you just go hide for most of it, wait for the fight, do a little bit of shooting, make the fight go one way or the other, you're gonna have like 200 damage because
Sure.
it's the kind of weapon that takes time to get up there. But if what PGI has done is they've made the PPCs hotter, so now you're shooting less. They've changed the rate of fire. They've made the mechs slower. So if you're PPC mech shooting, it's going to be harder for you to kind of reposition or get out of a bad location.
Well, that's it. It's really about repositioning, man. It's not necessarily about them being hotter, because if you're dropping behind a fucking rock, you got to jump up. Like lowering the amount of lift that you get from JJ's, changing the visibility of maps, that sort of shit. That has a fucking whole lot to do with it.
And then with increased structure as well, that now all
Sure.
mechs are carrying. And it all comes together. It wasn't one thing. It wasn't a.
See, this is the thing that is what it's all about. That's the crux of it all, man. Like, did you see the fucking thread that the dude posted with the straw poll today, where he was like, what do you think is the number one thing you would approach in terms of balance? And I'm looking at it, I'm going, man, like, these are not, it's not that simple. You don't just, oh, let me fix the quirks. Like, everything is tied together. Everything is it's a big fucking chain. You know what I mean? Everything is relative.
Exactly. I mean, with a game like this, it can't be any other way. And that approach, you just sometimes worry that PGI makes little changes without maybe fully comprehending like every single aspect of it. And I think that comes from a lack of experience.
Okay, but this is what I was
play.
saying earlier about the Steam thing. This is what I was trying to say earlier, is that maybe they are aware about all this, and they just know that if they wash out enough of the skill and make the game mindless enough which is what it is at its core, an arena shooter, if you wash out enough of the skill through these nerfs and these buffs and nerf, buff, nerf, buff, then doesn't it really placate not necessarily the whales, but the masses, the unwashed masses, the guys who they just downloaded the game? If they're not getting dunked out by somebody who's just way fucking better than them, then they're more likely to stay and this and that. Like, isn't that really the fucking the problem in terms of balance? Like, that they've, like, if you, like, in other words, like, dude, to take the skill level back to where it was, it's not just like unbuff. Everything is like interlocked. Like, it's a fucking chain of events. You can't just buff back SPLs. No, first you gotta buff back SPLs, and then you gotta fix the engine desync. Then you gotta remove some of the crazy quirks. Then you gotta fix some of the maps. Then you gotta get rid of arty strikes. Then you gotta fucking fix the JJ hovers. You know what I mean? Like, all these things come together. It's not just like one fucking thing.
SRM spread that they changed.
Mm-hmm.
The way Artemis works with it. Yeah. There's a huge holistic approach to it that just comes from so many angles.
You can't isolate one thing and go, let's fix that one thing, man. You can't. That's what I'm saying about that straw poll. I'm looking at it, I'm going like, dude, can I vote for everything? Do you know what I mean? Fuck.
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean. And that's that's just the nature of the beast. That's what we're dealing with, and they hopefully are figured out at some point.
I mean, the optimist in me says I give him a 40% chance. Is that?
Well,
that's way too much to be like. That's probably
as far as PGI playing their own game, for instance. Remember that one time they tried to do a season in MRBC with their devs? Yeah,
What?
they
I was
had
gone for this. What?
PGI put a developer team together, and they dropped in the European. They were in the European League, and they would play from the office during European times for games.
What
It,
the fuck? Oh my
it
god!
didn't.
What happened?
Well, they lost like all everything.
No, they didn't win a match, dude.
And what happened too is as the season
Seriously,
progressed,
they did not win a match.
you know, they might have won maybe a match against like some of the worst teams in the lowest division of the European, but not a whole, not all five, but maybe like one or two here and there.
Are you fucking for real?
But what ended up happening was the developer started playing it, and by the end of the season, it was mostly it was like NGNG sort of guys playing it instead of them.
Holy shit, dude.
Whether they decided they didn't want to spend time on it, or they were just getting killed so badly, like it was an
I want
embarrassment.
to be a fly in the wall on that meeting on the Monday. Hey guys, so listen up. We got our ass pumped. What do you guys? I'm fucking done. You know, somebody in the office who like was fucking throwing chairs and shit. Oh my god, I want to see that.
I wouldn't know anything about chair throwing, but
Where are you going with this whole thing? So they made a fucking comp
well,
team got
so
demolished.
in one of their earlier matches, they ran against a team running the Thunderbolt medium pulse laser variant that would just chainsaw things. Back when it was really strong, and like almost immediately after that game, they complained about it, and then they nerfed they attempted to nerf the Thunderbolt and that weapon system. And it just felt like this was not a new thing. This had been around for a while. But it took them running into it in this kind of situation for them to go, oh, this is, I didn't like that. Let's do something.
You mean to tell me they had to get viscerally buzzsawed down to have an idea of what the fuck is going on in their game?
So that's just one of those things that, makes me feel like they're not playing it.
Holy shit, dude. I understand that. I was not aware of that, dude. I was gone during that part, so. Hey, that's a good history lesson, thanks. Anthropologist in you, man.
So, I don't know what to tell you about any of that. I hope they get to it. I hope they fix it. But I don't know. I don't know what they're going to do or where they're going to go with it. I know they don't like me. They're not going to talk to me, and that's fine.
Why do you say that, man? They don't like people like me.
Well, they don't like you either, obviously.
They don't like me.
I've
been a dick, and I've tried to atone for it for years. They don't give a fuck, man. They do not give a fuck, man. I don't understand how the fuck they could possibly dislike. Are you kidding me, man? What the fuck beef have they ever thrown at you, man?
Yeah, well, it's the criticism. Even if it's constructive, I don't think they like the criticism. And I've never been much of a ass kisser. And as I don't want to say something terrible about PGI, but they clearly gravitate in their interactions towards the people that are, blowing the most smoke up their ass. And that's a pattern. It doesn't always happen. I know sometimes like they reached out to your team to help them train for that one time. I know Heimdallite has been a secret squirrel, and I doubt he had a perfect record with them.
I doubt it.
But I think the vast majority of people that they brought into their kind of inner circle, the people they're engaging with, the people that they're trying things out on their test servers and stuff before they go live, the people that have really their ear as far as their opinions about things, it's not necessarily the best people for the job. It's the people that are the most sycophantic, the people that they feel, the yes men. And I'm not a yes man. I've never been that. I've not been their enemy, but I'll call them out on their shiz and make a video pointing out like all the things they've said and all the things that they haven't done, and I doubt that they appreciate that. I've only really, other than talking to a few devs at MechCon, I've only really interacted with PGA one other time, and this is PGI, not NGNG, because I've talked about
Mm-hmm.
Armadillo a couple of times, but like we're not close, like. But and that was when for a little bit I tried to kind of jumpstart CW. I did these operations. I tried to get all these people involved. I tried to create a lore framework to what was going on to kind of make the game
Well,
feel a
that's
little
what
bit
we were
more
talking
like it
about
should
way
have.
earlier, that they never even had that shit. You know,
Yeah, they didn't. They never had it.
they dropped the ball on that one.
So I tried to create the kind of the outside third party framework. So, here's what's going on in the Inner Sphere, here's what's going on in the clans. I'm going to make a video in character as the Jarl of the FRR, and we're going to come back and we're going to take this planet. And they were pretty fun. I think that, they had big numbers those nights. They had a lot of kind of, publicity within the community. And it wasn't bad at all. And a lot of people enjoyed, having those nights they were fighting. There were goals. They weren't the best goals. It was like, let's just win, because it was back when the IS never won ever. But it added, just a little bit of that lore we were talking about. And a lot of people were like, you should talk to PGI. You should work with them more. Maybe they can get an idea from what you're doing to integrate it in the game. And I messaged Tina on the IPM turn. I said, hey, are you interested in this? And um, I laid it all out for her, like what we can do. Like I'm not trying to become an employee. I'm not trying to get any special anythings. But if you work with me, if you use your side of the database to, pick out a planet, or post something on your forums or your website, like we can take this to the next level. We can create, honest lore events that people are getting involved with. It's more than just, oh, we're going to fight for Tukia at the 9,000th time, or oh, if you fight today, you get extra XP, or you get like a free mech if you get so high. Like legitimate lore reasons to fight. And Tina at first was kind of like, maybe I'll look into it. And then like a month later, I gave her another large email. I said, we can do all of this. It could be great, but I haven't heard back from you. And she said, no, we're going to go in a different direction. And then she never got back to me, and the different direction they went in was not doing anything.
Yeah, yeah, like not doing anything is not a direction. That's fucking jerking off. That's bullshit.
I offered like the full extent of what I could do. It wasn't, I'm not a superhero, but it was more than nothing. It was more than what they were doing, and they just kind of said, no, go away. And so I said, all right, that's what you want, but that's not what the community wants, and that shouldn't be what you wanted.
If you could change anything in 2018 about this game, what would you change?
I think we have to get back to really the core of what my video was, and that was, at very least, make it fun. And when I say that, what I really mean is make some of the older, some of the entrenched play styles we're used to, make them viable again. They don't need to be overpowered. It doesn't need to be like 2013, where Highlander and Victor Pop-Tarts control the universe, and there's nothing you can do about it. But back when the medium Pop-Tarts could be very successful, back when brawling could be very successful, and back when 35-ton mechs could be very successful. That's where that's all. There's a pie in the sky for everything I want, and I would love it if they could do these huge things. But if they could just make the game engaging at the level that it used to be at, as what it is, as an FPS arena shooter with big mechs, with attrition, and with trading, yeah, I'd be okay with it. I mean, definitely, it's not what I could hope for. What more they could do, what better things they could do. But if they could at least go back to that, if they could recognize what they've done and take those steps, at least we could play it for another year.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
you know,
I do.
I
But here's my last serious question for you, and then we'll wind it down.
all right.
Do you, and I want you to really, really think about this, man. Do you think there's a possibility that when you talk about again, something fickle and subjective as fun. Do you think there's a possibility that you've already had all of your fun and that you're just chasing a ghost at this point? Maybe you've
That's
actually burnt out and you're not aware about it, but you still have some sort of sentiment, and that you think, oh, what if we changed the game? Like, in other words, what if we did all these things that we've talked about, and then you look at it and you go, oh, well, I'm still not having fun, see it. Like, what
yeah,
if
yeah.
that is the, what if that is the ultimate fucking reality at the end of it all? Do you think that's a possibility?
I think that definitely could be a possibility for me, and it could definitely be a possibility for a lot of people. They're what we want, they can't do. What we want is for them to roll back the clock, and that's impossible. And uh, it's always going to be tomorrow. It's never going to be yesterday. And I don't think though that I'm there yet. I
You
hope
really
I'm
don't
not.
think so?
I hope I'm not. You know, and I could be, right? Um, but I still have fun in this game, and I still play it on my own. I still by myself, and I still play it with my friends, and I hope not. But there's a definite possibility that we've just kind of reached, the end of the cycle of the life of the 4 or 5 years or wherever how long I've been playing this game has been enough, and it's just not going to be what we want it to be. But I'm not ready to throw in the towel. I'm not ready to submit yet to that eventuality. I think it could be fun again.
That's the
Um,
Viking in you. Never give it up.
I mean, but you see it. You see it with the a lot of the communities are winding down. A lot of the bigger units are getting smaller. A lot of the bigger leagues are getting smaller. A lot of
And
the
isn't that
competitive teams
natural?
are playing less.
Name a game where that's not the case.
Man, StarCraft Brood Wars lived forever.
Eve?
Probably Eve too. I mean, Eve is one of those games that fulfills a niche, though, that you're gonna struggle to find another game that does. And MechWarrior Online is similar in the way that it also fulfills a niche, and you're gonna struggle to find another game that does.
This
BattleTech's
game
not gonna
originally
scratch
filled a
it.
niche, and I don't know if it. I don't know with all the washout of this skill. I don't know if it necessarily is filling that niche anymore, man. Do you know
You
what I
might
mean?
be right.
Like
Yeah, yeah.
with
It,
the whole attracting Steam casuals and mindless gameplay. I don't know if it fills that niche anymore.
and I hear you. And that's one of the reasons why so many people are upset. That's one of the reasons why I made that video, is because I think you're exactly right. It's slipping out. Maybe just because it's so old, or maybe because of the decisions they're making, and you know, maybe that's all there is to it, and it's sad. And the Isengrim disbands, and I go cry in a cupboard or something, and make videos to the mirror, and think of better days.
Great, great. Because my next question, and I have one more after this, but one more thing to posit to you. Who did the fucking theme song, bro?
Terragato.
Ah!
That's Terragato. Anytime you hear singing, that's Isengrim
Savior of
specific.
the universe.
It's Terragato. So in my older videos, I also have the Jarl Dane, Jarl Dane. He's as bald as he is bold, or whatever. That's also Terragato. He's our he's our resident bard, our skald. He There's one song that I sang, and he usually plays it to like torture the people in our team speak, because it turns out I am a horrible singer.
All right,
It's like
all right,
really.
all right. One more question, man. One more
I had a lot
question.
of fun singing it though.
Ah! No. If you could ask Russ to his face one question, what would you ask him?
Oh, I guess at this point, the most important thing to ask would probably be, what are his long-term plans for MechWarrior Online in relationship to MechWarrior 5? Where, what should we expect? Is this kind of, are they winding things down over here in preparation for, a future MechWarrior 2 release? Is that what we're, dealing with? That's why, this game's not fulfilling that niche anymore, because they're reconstructing that niche a little bit further down the line. I think that might be the most pertinent question towards the future of this game to know at this point. Or, and then if he answers, oh, no, where MechWarrior Online's what it is, and we're going to leave it there, and we're going to just run it the way it is forever. I mean, that's what's happening in the game isn't some C team's kind of custodial duty, keeping it running while we focus on something else. This is as good as it gets, and it's going to keep going in this direction. That tells us something very different about the future of this game.
Yeah.
I would like to know his secret account so I could run it on the Jarl's list. That would be my second question.
He's up there, man. He's on there. Oh shit.
Just give me a list of all of your developers, secret accounts.
That's funny.
How many buckets do you own, Russ? Are you a bucket man?
Yeah, he's making like an alt count every day so he can stay down at tier 5. He's one of those guys just banging on seals all day. Like, what if that's what he really is? Oh shit.
I love it.
Do you have any questions for me, or is there anything you want to address in general, or any questions you saw in chat or anything?
Well, to you once made this video about I'm not really sure what it was about, but it involved the old BattleTech cartoon, and they got a transmission from one of my videos. Was that you that made that?
In a former life, and yeah, I believe so.
Yeah, I like that a lot. That was awesome. Everybody should watch that video. Watch the whole thing through, from beginning to end. And then if there's a way to play it the other way, from end to beginning, I think that's how that should be watched. That is probably one of my favorite videos ever made in this game.
We need to find somebody who has like the DVD set of the cartoon, or like pristine VHS copies, because it's very difficult to use the scraps that we have on YouTube. Some of them, the audio quality is just there's nothing you can work with. But I actually think that somebody maybe like 9 months ago, uploaded some higher quality versions of it. So I'd say maybe in the future we'll see what happens.
That was a great video. I like that I was giving them the transmission. It just filled me with pride.
A strange transmission.
Oh, that's good. I appreciated that video. I hope to see more of those in the future.
Yeah, I mean, hey man, like, suck my own balls a second. Like, I've been through this game, the gauntlet, and the gambit. Just range of emotions, and I'm not. Hey, if anybody could have called it quit, I was thinking about this earlier, right? Like, things that the last straws that people have. Like, dude, I've been through a whole lot of bullshit that honestly most people in this community would not even possibly put up with. I was thinking about it earlier tonight. Like, some of the shit that I've dealt with in this fucking game, some of the shit that maybe you've dealt with, or other people everybody's had their own fucking struggles or whatever, but like, I definitely can say, if it gives anybody like solace, like, I've probably been through more garbage in terms of confrontation and problems and bullshit than your average player in this game, and I'm still standing here, and I'm not ready to fucking throw in the towel, man. I barely even started. You know what I'm saying? Let's hope that if the game can continue, then let's just keep it going, right?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I don't want to go anywhere. I don't want to learn a new game. I don't want to make new friends. I want to play with my same friend.
Fuck everybody else out there. This is the MechWarrior community, and we need to make a fucking stand and fight for what we fucking want to play and how we want to play it. And it's up to us, isn't it? Because
Yeah.
we're niche motherfuckers at this point in terms of this IP. And if you're not into dice rolling and you're not into fucking busting out the card game from 15 years ago, and you're not into reinstalling Mech Assault or Living Legends or Mech Commander, I mean, this is it. So if MechWarrior 5 comes out and it appeases all the people who sit behind rocks and jerk off and play like Private Upham, those people can go play single player and idle and AFK and go make sandwiches to their heart's delight. But for everybody that wants a fucking online version of Robot Laser Battletech, like, this is it. We need to fight for it. We need to fucking make our voices heard. We need to fucking say fuck you to the whales. We need to say fuck you to the casual steamers, and not as in like fuck off, piss off. But what we need to do is represent the realness with this fucking game. And anytime that anybody in this fucking community sees a new fucking player that is crawling their way out and asking relevant questions and is not a fucking douchebag and is fucking real, we need to fucking grab them and save them from walking the fuck out the door. That needs to be, in my opinion, that's crucial. Like, if you see somebody out there that is new and needs help and is asking the right questions and wants help, like, we need to fucking snatch these people up, bring them into your unit, train them, group up with them and help them answer fucking questions and shit like that. Because regardless of whether or not we turn around this game, even if we make this game perfectly fucking balanced in 2018 and all our dreams fucking come true, people will be moving on to new games. People will always be seeking new challenges and always want something new. And so if you expect this game to still be around years from now, like, the only way you do that is you take the time to help out new players and give a bit of your fucking patience and your time to those people when you spot them. You can't just fucking dismiss them as being scrubs and newbies and underhivelings and shit like that. So that would be my last comment going out the door, would be like, don't dismiss everybody that seems like they're below you like a plebe, because frankly speaking, all y'all motherfuckers are fucking below me and a few other fucking select people. But dude, if it takes 4 hours to train a motherfucker and to teach him certain things, I'm glad to do it. And I'm sure you feel the same way, and there's a lot of people out there in this community that want that to be the case. And I mean, just, you know, be a bit more patient, be a bit more open-minded, give PGI a bit more benefit of the doubt, tell them what you really fucking think, don't pull your fucking punches, and try and hold them accountable. Don't fucking try and make it personal. Don't be emotional. And if you really care about the IP and you really enjoy this game, you want to see it keep going on, like, be fucking honest, protect the noobs, say fuck the whales and fuck the brown sea, you know, become correct at this shit.
It's really interesting you say that, because one of the reasons Mech Assault 2's community kind of tanked was it became really toxic. It was an Xbox game, so, you know, obviously you're already kind of dealing with a certain kind of people, but you just ended up in a place where you had these people who had been playing it since it came out, who got the meta of it, who had the strategies and knew which mechs to use and how to use them, and they would just tear apart anybody new that showed up. They would just destroy them and belittle them and treat them terribly. And there was like maybe 3 of these units at the time that were just these big dogs that had a lot of the competitive good players in them, and they just beat everybody down. You know, not just in the game, but you know, emotionally, and they tell them just how shit they were, and it made it so that people would get on and they wouldn't want to play online anymore, because they didn't have time to learn the learning curve, and in the process of learning it, they just got treated so poorly that, you know, why bother? And
I know. I recognize that mistake personally with regards to MW, and I've been trying to atone for it for years, and I don't think I'll ever possibly make up for it. But you do what you can. Do you know what I mean? Like, there's like, everybody. If you see this sort of shit, you have to be able to reach out a helping hand, man. Because ultimately, let's imagine this game is great, it's balanced, and blah blah blah. Fucking 30 years from now, I'll be the last motherfucker in the arena.
You'll be turning the lights off?
Shooting at shadows by myself. because no one else is left. But before the lights go out and the
My
servers go
boy,
down,
this peace
we
is
have
what
to
all true warriors strive for.
we have to fucking try and protect the actual noobs that show promise and are interested in the game and aren't just fucking jaded whales and shit like that. We have there are some people that are hopeless causes or whatever, but like when you spot somebody that's genuinely wants to elevate their play and has the fucking patience to learn and is interested, help them out, encourage them, suggest a couple mech packs here or there that will open the doors for them to be flexible in terms of drops and what they can do, and tell them about comp and this and that. We can't just stand around and be toxic assholes. The time for that is past, and the time for lamenting that is past, and we have to fucking do something about it. We have to balance the game, we have to protect the fucking scrubs, elevate the noobs, all that shit. You can't just fucking piss all over the game and expect it to fucking last.
And it's not necessarily balance, because that might be, you know, a white whale. That might be impossible. And there was actually a video someone posted on Reddit recently that someone else did about different games where they talked about the difference between balance or nerfs and buffs. And
yeah, it was incredibly important. People should go watch all that dude's videos. I watched all of them and I was fucking just stunned. I have immense respect for the A-Core gaming guy.
Yep.
Huge fucking wise person. There's people like me that are smart that aren't necessarily wise. Then there's really wise people, and you should pay more attention to the wise people than the smart people.
So they don't necessarily need to do the impossible and balance this game, but if they just stopped nerfing everything and instead, you know, they buffed for balance, or they buffed to, you know, make the game a little bit more enjoyable, more interesting, I would rather see that. I'd rather see that kind of mindset. You know, how do we make everything terrible so, you know, nothing's good? Instead, how do we make everything awesome? And then, oh, we made this too awesome. Well, people can run around in their absurd dragons for about 3 months and then they'll fix it. You know, I think that's more fun.
By the way, you're a very wise person. Jarl Dane. What the fuck does Genga Alfric mean? Can I ask that?
Alright, so this isn't a perfect pronunciation. I think it's supposed to be Gonga Olvrek, something closer to that. And what it literally means is scatter the elves.
Fuck the elves, man.
So when we say that, we're saying we're going to scatter the other team and their elves. However, it was also a euphemism used by Vikings, by the Norsemen, and the euphemism for it was they were going to take a shit. So they'd be like, "Hey, Bill, hey, Ulfric, I'm going to go and I'm going to scatter the elves. I'll try to light a match afterwards." And then he'd go shit, and then he'd come back and.
Gonga Alfric?
Yeah, that's so. So at one level, we're saying we're going to scatter the enemy elves. On the other level, we're kind of saying we're going to take a shit on them.
Hey, man, flavorful shit talk is what the game needs. We need less, like, get fucked, uninstall. Like, that's the toxic shit, man. We need more fucking flavor in RP and people approaching the game from that level. You've always been a colorful character, man. And I'm pretty sure everybody in the community has a lot of respect for you even bothering to grace us with your wisdom. Really, man. Believe it, man. You know what? It's not like I'm saying you're Einstein, but you know what? This is a fucking niche game. We gotta work with what we got. Alright? We got you.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, we got a few other people. Alright?
We do what we can because we must.
Mm-hmm.
No, I appreciate, you know, you. I've enjoyed your King Harkinian personality, just kind of coming back and sort of re-engaging with the game in a different way, and it's been fun, you know, watching that happen.
Hey, thanks, man. I do what I can.
You wise old man, you.
What? I think you're older than me. How old are you?
What? You know, Jarls are timeless.
Oh shit! All right, yeah, man. Yeah.
I'm 31.
Yeah, okay. I guess I am older than you. Holy shit! Fuck. You got a fuller beard than me, though, man. So.
No.
Man.
For a while, I wasn't allowed to shave it either, but
You know, or something. By the way, something you said earlier was, you know, the community is very old, and I want you to think about this. What do you think was the oldest person at any of the fucking world champs? Think about that one. They ain't motherfucker. None of these motherfuckers were like 50 years old, dog.
yeah.
So.
And that goes with two things. You know, people raised on video games are going to be, you know, better at it, and people younger are probably going to have better reflexes. And then people that are younger, not always, you know, this is definitely not always the case, but often have more time. You know, if you don't have a family, if you're just working a job maybe and just doing your own thing, you can spend every single day practicing.
Absolutely. That's how most comp things are. You're not, by the time you get to mid-30s, 40, you got a fucking family, you got this or that. And so when we sit here and we talk about this game and like, well, you know, maybe if they have infinite amount of time, they can right the ship or whatever. But it's like, I kind of feel like, man, if I don't jump ship to something new, give it another 5 years, 6 years, man, by that point I'm gonna be approaching 40. Like, how much more do I have in terms of like being potentially good at video games? You know what I mean? Like, I need this. I need this, and I need it now, and I don't have fucking 5 years for them to fucking get it together. Like, we need it now, man.
I want to go to another game where nobody knows who the Jarl is. That's
Really?
a way. I don't want to be a stranger. I spent 4 years cultivating my identity here. I don't want to go spend another 4 years just to get where I am today.
Yeah, I know what you mean. But we do need new challenges, and whether or not that's, if we all eventually throw in the towel and say, alright, fuck it, I'm out the door, quietly, or kicking and screaming out the door, we all do need new challenges, and the last thing we need is for them to just say, fuck this game, and ignore it, and neglect it, and shit like that. Like, if this is the game that we decide to fucking play, then they have to fucking hold that torch and keep progressing forward. What? Maybe it ends up being fucking goddamn jihad, and I'm like, oh, this is fucking anime cancer. I'm out here. But hey, man, if it makes the game sustain and keep going, then hey,
yeah,
for it.
Yeah, no, I appreciate you talking to me, and I hope we make it to another day.
I'm sure that there's at least, you know, a couple more years in this game, even if they don't change engines and they say fucking they go to MW5 and then they start thinking about MW6 or something like that. I'm sure we have at least a couple more years to rock this shit until the lights go out, and I promise, I don't know about you and I don't know about everybody else, but I'll be standing there fucking dunking shadows by myself in the training grounds till the fucking walls collapse, man.
Well, I think I'll play this game for a while yet. I probably won't be there at the end, though. If my community basically disbands, if I don't have an obligation to them, you know, and not just an obligation, but a desire to play with them because they're gone, you know, I might just sail away on a burning ship into the ocean while someone plays a sad song on there.
Oh man, you got to go out like fucking Blood Eagle style, man. You got to go walk out there and have a bunch of dudes just have like 12 death strikes, all alpha you in the back. Just, that would be the ultimate go out.
I could do that too. Although I prefer not to die so gorily. Just peacefully out into the ocean, never to be seen again.
Well, don't think about it. Don't. It's too depressing, man. You gotta be, man. It's glory, man. Like,
we're not there yet. We're not there yet. Maybe PGI will, you know, listen this time.
Yeah, like I said, I think it's probably 40%. Most people don't seem to think it's that high, but so if anything, I'm an optimist, apparently.
Yeah, so. But maybe things are in the pipeline. You know, maybe they're secretly rebuilding this on Unreal, and
Yeah,
We'll
I
be
know,
all
right? Like,
surprised.
yeah, exactly. Like, we are not exactly hip to everything. We can sit here and analyze the game that we play and the tendencies and what we only react to what we see and stuff like that. But we don't fucking know, man. Maybe Brian Ekman disappeared because he recruited like 40. He recruited Cliffy B, and he's gonna make fucking MWO 2.0, and it's gonna be ill as fuck, man. I don't fucking know.
Yeah, that's maybe Transmechverse.
Trans Mechverse, that's right.
Yeah, there's our future right there. 1%, 1% funded.
Like, hey, what was it, Chris Roberts shit? Like, hey, man, you guys want MW2? It's gonna be like, I need like $8,000 down payment on a fucking generator. Like, all right, I'm out the door, man. I'm done. I'm fucking out.
They didn't sell enough Golden Dreams for Transmechverse to take off, but
Shit.
maybe next time.
Nico Snow is like, just pops his head in, like, what's up, guys? Like, oh, fuck.
I set up the Reddit for our new game.
Yeah, he's the fucking Reddit master of. He's outreach to Overlord is Nico Snow. Like, oh, fuck, here we go again.
Oh man. Well, I gotta go to bed.
Sure, man,
So-
understandable. And but hey, you gave 2.5 hours to this. So, by the way, I reached out to people in chat. I reached out to Dane and said, hey, let's impromptu shoot the shit to see where it goes. Wanted to, you know, I wanted to present Dane in a improvisational outlet, so you can see this dude is legit and real, does give a fuck, and what he says is wise, and it's not like he has to sit there and think about it and make a fucking perfect video
My
and
boy,
everything
this
like
peace
that.
is what all true warriors
So
strive
thanks,
for.
Jarl, for actually bothering with this. Jarl. Ganga
Hey, no
Alfred.
problem.
Alright, so
Yeah.
thanks for 2.5 hours of your time, and I'm sure we'll talk again, and everybody appreciates it, and I appreciate it, so thanks for your time, man.
Hey, thanks. I appreciate what you do, what you still do for the community. I don't even have free mechs or trips to Vancouver to give you.
That's okay. That's okay. You know, who was it? Ninja Moose back at the last one, really drunk one night, was like, yo, man, he's like, you want to go to Vank? And I was like, my dream, I'll say it right now, is perfect time. Like, my dream with the game of, like, what could I do at this point that, like, I haven't accomplished that I wanted to accomplish would be to go to Vancouver to the World Champs and then sit around all day and duel everybody and just shit on people and then get super fucking drunk and then come back and be like super belligerent and like walk around and like be antagonistic as fuck and like piss people out and like grab Tina's boobs in like a blackout drunk state and get like thrown out by fucking security and then record it all with a GoPro. That would be legend. Like 5 years from now, people will be looking back on MDOBO and be like, hey, do you remember that time dude was like retarded at fucking the convention and got tossed out for being an asshole? That would be fucking timeless, man. That's like my golden goose, man. But you know what? I'm too much pussy. I'll never fucking do that. I don't have the money for that. That's like if I was a millionaire, I would fucking have already done it. But fuck that. Fuck that, man. That'd be great.
Maybe someday. Maybe your streams will get you there.
In my dreams.
Yeah. Well, I'm gonna go. It's nice talking to you. I'll see you later, King Harkinian.
Absolutely, y'all. Take care, man.
Farewell.
He's a good man. I hope you guys listen to the wisdom that he had to say, the pragmatism with which he speaks, the passion that he has for this game. A good man, a good player, and this is what I hope his talk with RJ Bass emulates and goes past. So I've been drinking this entire 2.5 hours. I really gotta pee. I'll play a little bit, like maybe an hour, hour and a half after this, but I have to go pee. Otherwise, I will pee myself. So, again, thanks to Jarl. He is a really, really nice guy, as most of you out there in this community are. And thanks for watching. I'll play a little bit after this, but I'm going to take a 5-minute break and go pee, and then I'll drop a little bit. So, yeah. By the way, for all you people dropping out, have a great fucking weekend. Take care. Think about what you can do to communicate your thoughts to PGI in a compelling manner. Think about what's really important. Think about the future. Think about the community and all that shit. So, I'll be back in a couple minutes. We'll say 5 minutes I'll drop, okay? Alright.